LSU at Alabama. It's the SEC on CBS in a West Division battle.
Obviously, this is going to be like a heavyweight fight. It'll be loud, but you know what, we're used to doing that. We've been on the road. You can tell by the rankings, it looks like we made up some ground, but, you know, we still got to beat them.
It doesn't matter where you're ranked. If you don't have success in what you're doing, you're not going to be ranked there long. So you need to focus on what you need to do to play well in the game.
You know, we got to go out and face them, but they got to come out and face us too.
Burrow backpedaling, lofts up the fade, right corner, over the shoulder catch. Jamar Chase has it for a touchdown.
Whether he had grit, character, toughness, I think our quarterback has it all. I think the one thing that you'll find with both quarterbacks, they're team players. It's about their football team, it's about winning, and they're unselfish.
If he can play in the game, it'll be a game-time decision.
Tua looks, Judy wide open, near side, touchdown, Alabama!
You know, LSU is like a big game every year we play them for competition, so it's going to be a really exciting game.
I would not want anybody else in the country on our offense or our defense than our football team that we have right here. I believe in these guys.
All right, it's not 1v2 anymore, but LSU and Bama still has that game of the century hype surrounding it. These two programs have both been ranked in each of the 13 games since Nick Saban started at Bama in 2007. He is 10-3 against the Tigers, including 8 wins in a row. And with that, what is good, streaming people? I'm Tommy Tran. No Brady Quinn this week, but no problem. Alongside me, two-time Super Bowl champion and Florida State's own Bryant McFadden. This is the SEC on CBS Super Preview of LSU and Alabama right here on CBS Sports HQ. And B-Mac, let's get right to it. A couple of keys of the game for you. Bama's defensive unit, your forte, going up against Joe Burrow, LSU in that short passing game. How will that defense attack that offense?
Well, they will need to be consistent in being able to not allow separation between from the pass catchers with LSU. And you look at what Joe Burrow has been able to do. I mean, against top 25 opponents, he's completing 80% of his passes, 8 touchdowns compared to 2 interceptions in 3 ball games. And then outside of the top 25 opponents, the 2 most difficult defenses, Tommy, he's faced off against. Auburn completed 76% of his passes, over 300 yards, 1 touchdown, and then Florida, 78%, 327, 4 touchdowns. He has been so efficient, and because of that, they've been able to sustain drives, get into the red area, and ultimately score points. And you look at how he's been distributing the football. Look at this. Jefferson, 50-plus catches. Chase, Marshall Jr. I mean, look at the average from these pass catchers, and then you look at the running back. I mean, these guys have done a phenomenal job in creating separation, and that short passing game for LSU has been so potent. And he just picking and choosing who he would like to distribute the football to. That has to be a top priority for Alabama, knowing these quick slants, these quick drag routes that they love to run. You have to be able to be right there in the hip pocket of their pass catchers and be disruptive at the line of scrimmage.
When we look at this game, focus, of course, on the 2 top scoring offenses in the SEC, but also the defenses, both top 6. And when you look at protecting the football, that's going to be a big key for you.
Now, anytime you see a matchup between 2 playoff caliber teams, championship-like teams, especially rivalries, turnovers usually decide who will win and who will lose. You look at some of the most important ball games going back a few weeks ago to LSU, Alabama, Florida. You saw how big turnovers was in that matchup that led to LSU coming up with a huge big-time win. The same can be said for Alabama and how opportunistic their defense has been. The offense that protects the football the best, the offense that plays the cleanest football will win this ball game.
All right, our thanks to Brian McFadden. We'll get back to B-Mac in just a little bit. Let's welcome in Gary Danielson over the phone. He joins us every single week to preview the SEC on CBS. And Gary, we have the top 2 scoring offenses in the SEC. It's not going to be the 9-6 battle in 2011 that we saw in the regular season here. What are your thoughts on a game that we anticipate in terms of pace of play, a game in the high 20s or 30s?
No, I would think both teams go into this game, Tommy, thinking if they don't get into the 30s, they will not win the football game. From the very first series, if I was an offensive coordinator in this game, I'd be thinking I got to score at least 1 touchdown every quarter, and I need 1 more to ensure a victory. I think if you score in the mid-20s, you're not going to win this game. Too much talent on this field. The biggest difference in this game, even, if you had Bill Belichick trying to take away certain aspects of this offense. The difficulty is, in the NFL with the salary cap and the draft, there's only one or two star players on the field relative to that equal talent. Here, LSU and Alabama has 20 first-round draft picks. So they each have three great receivers. They both got a star at running back. They both got a tight end that can catch the ball. It's very more difficult for a defensive coordinator in college football to shut down a certain aspect of the team.
And so that's a look at the style of play. Let's break down each offense, and we'll start with the Crimson Tide. This game at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Tua Tagovailoa, a game-time decision with that injured ankle. Now, if he's ineffective or gets injured again, have we learned enough about Mac Jones and how much of a drop-off there is in the offense?
Well, we know Mac Jones can play when he has a full week of practice and when he's playing against Arkansas. So that's not happening this week. The best he's going to do is get 40 to 50% of the snaps leading up to this game, so he will not be as prepared as he was against Arkansas, and obviously LSU is a far superior team than Arkansas. So I would say that the Mac Jones we saw a couple weeks ago won't be the same. I think that if Alabama's going to win this game, they need Tua at least 80 to 90%. They don't count on him to run the ball a lot, but he has to be able to maneuver in the pocket. When you look at this football offense as a whole for Alabama, it's built around their wide receivers. It's not the old game manager type quarterback that can get the job done for Alabama. If they don't get the ball to Judy and Smith and Ruggs and Waddle, the offense is not going to make a lot of first downs running off tackle with short bootlegs. It's not built that way.
And Jones versus Arkansas, 18 of 22 for 235 and 3 scores. On the other side, a lot has been talked about, of course, with LSU. In this game, 2 out of the last 3 years, they've been shut out. No points. Tigers' offense has changed. You got Joe Brady, the passing game coordinator. Coach O this week in his press conference saying, hey, the game of football, now basketball on grass. What do you see as the biggest difference as you watch this offense evolve this year?
Well, the reason, there's no mystery here. The reason that LSU believes, absolutely believes, is because they got a guy at quarterback that is not inferior to the other team's quarterback in this game. Might call him equal. Well, maybe Tua's a little better in some people's eyes. Maybe Burrow's a little better in some people's eyes. But when you go in the game, you go in the game with hope, and that's what LSU didn't have. Last year, as soon as Alabama put more than 9 points on the game board, pretty much every LSU fan that knew anything about football knew the game was over. That's not the case this year. There's hope on the field that gives their defense more hope. It makes it easier to call plays. And with their 3 wide receivers, they're not as explosive with short passes for touchdowns, but they're very effective with contested balls and making first downs. And I really think that's the blueprint for this LSU team against Alabama, much the same way Georgia did against Florida. They've got to convert on third down, keep the ball away from this powerful Alabama offense. If it becomes a 10 or 11 possession game instead of a 13 to 15 possession game, I like LSU's chances.
And the quarterback, Joe Burrow, the hope here, a big reason why a lot of people think that this is Ed Orgeron's best chance at beating Bama. Nick Saban, we know, versus top 5, 18-8. For Coach O against top 5, just 1-3, including 0-3 versus Bama. We took his press conference live on Monday, and there seems to be this notion, Gary, that the confidence that he is exuding, I'm talking about Coach O, he does it privately, maybe with some college writers and yourself, but he's been more public about it because of the confidence he has in his team. But what about what happens on Saturday if he gets into a situation? How much do you think the way he's evolved as a coach, the way he has his offense running differently now that we have seen a new Coach O going up to this matchup with Coach Saban?
Sometimes it doesn't matter what the coach does. I mean, sometimes the talent on the other team on that day is too much for you. Just go back to last year's Clemson dismantling of Alabama in that football game. You know, Coach Saban had his team ready. He's an excellent coach, good game plan. That day, Trevor Lawrence and those receivers were too much for the Alabama team. It almost happened in the SEC Championship. Georgia was knocking around this Alabama team all over the field. Jalen Hurts comes off the bench, tips the tide in their favor. So Ed has to go. Coach O has to go in the game. He's the leader. He's the guy that's going to be on the field first. He has to go in the game with his squad looking at their leader saying, my guy's not fearful of this game. He believes in us, and I think that's the total atmosphere that has been around this LSU program since last year's game till now. They've been trying to get this team retooled to beat Alabama. The new era of LSU football does not start until they beat Alabama. If they lose again, it'll be a good story, but it'll be, yeah, it's going in the right direction. Maybe they had a special quarterback, but they're still not as good as Alabama. If they win, game on. LSU is back.
Gary Danielson joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. Gary, I'll let you go on this. What is your potential difference maker or the difference in this game on Saturday?
Could be anyone, but I'm going to pick the two running backs. They both are involved in run blocking. They both play a little different style than the old Alabama LSU running backs. Leonard Fournette catching the ball, running the ball between the tackles, doing the toss sweep. You know, Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry running the ball downhill. They more play like Elvin Kamara type style of game. They catch the ball out of the backfield. They're asked to pick up blitzes. They run pass routes. That could be the difference maker in the game. Which running back has the bigger game?
All right, Gary Danielson, thanks again for joining us here on HQ, the SEC on CBS with Brett Nessler, Jamie Erdahl. Again, for the third straight week, CBS, you're home to a top 10 matchup. This time it's 2 versus 3, LSU at Alabama from Bryant-Denny Stadium. All right, let's keep this thing going. We got Barton Simmons with 3 players to watch, a couple of Bama guys, one Go Tiger. And Barton, when we look at the defensive side of things, let's start with one of the linebackers you got, Shane Lee.
Yeah, I mean, Shane Lee's a true freshman, right? And he's the Mike for this Alabama defense. He's the guy that's getting them lined up. He's really the stabilizing force, which is strange to say for a true freshman, but he's really more of a thumper by trade. He's more of a downhill, kind of old school linebacker, and I think he's so critical in this game because of the way Joe Brady, LSU, Steve Ensminger, that offense compromises linebackers, compromises second-level defenders. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Gary Daniels talked about him. That's a guy that is going to be matched up with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and is going to have some opportunities to showcase his ability to play in space or maybe get exposed with his inability to play in space. And so I think because you're going to see a lot of nickel and dime packages from this Alabama defense with Shane Lee staying on the field, it's going to be really important for him to have some big moments and maybe play above himself in some areas that he's not as strong, which is that spatial ability. And so I think that's going to be huge in terms of his ability to win some of those matchups.
Shane Lee, a 4-star guy out of the state of Maryland. And what about a fellow teammate of him, a fellow linebacker there, Barrett?
Well, I think when you're talking LSU, you're talking about a team that can score in so many different ways. And we saw with Auburn, one of the keys to Auburn being able to find some success against LSU was to only bring about 3 or 4 pass rushers most of the game and really devote a lot of the resources to the back end, mixing up coverages and the ability to give Joe Burrow some issues in that passing game. But in order to do that, you got to be able to get pressure with 3 or 4 guys. And Terrell Lewis for Alabama is one of those players that can get pressure off the edge. He's really emerging. He's had injuries through a lot of his career early on. And now healthy and playing up to his full potential, he's becoming one of the emerging sort of NFL draft prospects on this Alabama team. And this is a game where he's going up against an LSU offensive line that's one of the best in the country. They've been outstanding at keeping Joe Burrow clean. They only block you with 5. They're not going to keep guys in to help you out. And so you're going to get some one-on-one matches from Terrell Lewis. And he needs to capitalize. He needs to get to Joe Burrow. Needs to get LSU off schedule a few times over the course of this game.
Lewis is the SEC leader, tied for it in sacks with 6 in 7 games. All right, how about the other side with LSU? Barton, where are you looking?
Well, I think defensively, some of the same challenges that Alabama presents are what LSU presents offensively as well. And so I think you could translate this to the Alabama side too. But I'm looking in the defensive secondary. I'm going to say Kerry Vincent, but really what I'm talking about here is that 5th, 6th, maybe 7th defensive back that's going to get on the field. So whether it's Cordell Flott, whether it's Jay Ward, whether it's Eric Monroe, here I'm talking Kerry Vincent. But these are the guys, I think, that have to have huge games. because Alabama has 4 wide receivers that are potential first-round type talents that it can throw at you. So when you're matched up in those slots, when you're a guy that has to get off a block on the perimeter with some of those bubble screens or quick screens, you better be ready to play. These are not guys that could come in and be just supplementary, complementary type of players. They got to have big games because they're going to be matched up with some elite players regardless of the situation. So I think Kerry Vincent represents those nickel supplementary defensive backs that has to come in focused and ready for a big-time game.
3 players to watch with Barton Simmons. Barton certainly appreciated. Catch Barton as well as Chip Patterson, Tom Fordelli, the Cover 3 podcast crew. They do a great job really assessing every game, reacting to every game, all the kind of big newsy type stuff in the landscape of college football. They certainly have you covered there. Catch them. Download, subscribe today. Back here with Brian McFadden and BMAC. It's interesting because Barton's 3 players to watch, all defensive guys. And again, we talk about the offense all the time. And Gary Danielson saying first to 30, or at least 30, maybe even 40 wins the game right now. Some of your big takeaways from what we heard here.
Yeah, defense will be a huge key for both teams because both offenses, they've been so good. They've been so explosive. I mean, both quarterbacks could potentially be a top 5 selected player in the upcoming NFL draft. That's how good these players are. Not to mention, they're both fighting for the Heisman Trophy Award as well. So we know what the offense will be able to do because both offenses have been the strong suit for both teams. It's about the defense and getting timely stops, creating turnovers, like I said earlier in the show. That would be huge for the winning team. I mean, Alabama playing at home, one would think their defense should be fired up with the home crowd noise. That could be an issue for LSU, especially when you look at the snap counts and things like that, and being able to get a nice jump on the football. The front from Alabama should be able to provide and cause havoc for LSU with the home crowd. But it's about being consistent. It's about making timely plays, not to mention red zone defense. Red zone defense will be so important in this ball game because, like you talked about, you just mentioned their offense and the points they've scored average-wise. I mean, both offenses are scoring anywhere between 50 points per ball game. So being able to have quality play in the red zone will be huge.
One more thing here, talking about Tua Tagovailoa, again, a game-time decision. Everyone's expecting that he's going to play, but he's dealing with that ankle injury. If you're Dave Aranda and that LSU defense, how do you anticipate Tua coming out? What would you do as a defensive player and a defensive unit to try to attack him?
Well, if he's in uniform, you attack Tua like he's 100% healthy. You can't do anything outside of that because he's that type of player. And if he is in uniform, let's bring the heat. Let's bring the dogs. Let's bring everything, including the kitchen sink, to see exactly how healthy he is. Because the one great thing, well, he has a lot of great things about his game. But one thing no one really talks about is his mobility. The way he's able to make defenders miss, move around in the pocket, allow his legs to create plays for him to make with his arm. That's huge in his success. I mean, when he's not as mobile, now he's an easy target. But when he is mobile, I mean, he can create things, he can improvise, and that's why he's been so successful. But if he's in this ball game, knowing that he just had ankle surgery, a few weeks ago, first third down opportunity, if it's 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, let's bring some type of exotic pressure to see exactly how he's moving. All
right, what's helped Tua Tagovailoa, of course, is the bye week. He injured his ankle against Tennessee. They didn't need him against Arkansas, but now, as we heard, the reps being split a little bit. It'll be interesting to see because if he gets hurt or he's ineffective and for some reason if Mac Jones has to come in, he doesn't have the full reps that he did against Arkansas. All right, BMAC, sit tight. When we come back, it's time to talk about the pick against the spread. You have the team at home, the Crimson Tide. They're the 3rd-ranked team, but they're favored by 6.5. Sports Line expert Tim Doyle going to join us to break that down next.